week. I mean, that was our vision then, and we presented it to different leaders in the community. You know, our proposal never passed. So we said, you know what? We're just gonna, you know, God has put this on our heart. We're gonna try and raise the money ourselves to get to that point. And so we just kept pushing on, moving forward.
Let me pause you for a second. So in 2019, how many trailers did you have?
So we only had the shower trailer. That's it. Yeah.
And from the shower trailer, you were doing all three. You were doing the showers. You were doing the haircuts.
Oh, I'm sorry. We had two trailers. Sorry, our clothing trailer, which our clothing trailer helped provide clothing and hygiene products. So we had that and our shower trailer.
And where would you post up your trailers when it was time for service?
So we rotated. You know, we would go to the Orlando Central Seventh-day Adventist Church. We would go to, Lake Buena Vista SDA Church or the United Methodist Church. I mean, we just kind of went to different properties to do that.
And then through advertisement, the homeless would come to those areas and get their services met.
Yeah, word of mouth. You know, one of the things that I think, because before all this, we were actually doing food shares. So we were serving maybe 200 to 300 people with food twice a month. And so we decided to transition our efforts to more this mobile drop-in center concept. And so we had a relationship with them already for 6 years.
Gotcha.
And so we were known as the people that really cared.
Yeah.
You know, they were like, yeah, you need to go to SALT. They really care, you know, and it's just, I mean, it was just a bunch of young people, young 20-something-year-olds trying to figure out how to serve the community, you know what I mean? But God had that vision on our heart, and we just kept going. And 2020, we went to 3 days a month, and then COVID hit. When COVID hit, that's when everything just catapulted, the growth of the organization, because the need catapulted.
So so COVID-19 really stimulated your growth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell us about that. How did that happen?
So when COVID hit, the unsheltered pretty much had nowhere to go. A lot of the organizations, because of the uncertainty with the coronavirus, and totally understandable, they closed down, weren't letting new people in, weren't letting people out even, you know. And so we were one of the only organizations continuing to operate during that time. And so the city of Orlando actually approached us, and they said, hey, let's revisit a proposal from last year. And so they did a little a trial run. They gave us about 6,000 or so to trial, do 3 days a week for 2 weeks. We did it. It went really well. So then that year they gave us a total of about 200,000 to operate 3 days a week for the rest of the year.
Nice.
With the kind of bare minimum. And then we raised an additional 160 to help meet additional needs that we were seeing as we continue to operate.
So it sounds like in addition to the financial resources that the city and donations brought in, you were able to purchase more mobile units as well, or?
So we didn't purchase the next mobile unit until 2021. So in 2020, we actually we started trialing a case management program. And so we thought that was really important. We needed that.
What do you mean a case management program? I've never really heard that advertised so much when talking about the homeless. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we stole someone from Advent Health, actually, a licensed clinical social worker. She's a longtime volunteer and donor. And, I just was like, hey, we'll hire you part-time, work on Sundays. Let's try and figure out this case management thing. And so we created that program. Basically what it is we assess the need. We figure out what those needs are. Then we create a plan with them, and then we refer them out to other agencies, because we basically act as a front door.
Yeah.
So people come to us first to get those basic needs met. They sit with our case management team. They figure out what other organization can help them on their journey.
Gotcha.
We get them over there, but we don't stop there. So we continue to coach them through this journey. So they might go, we might follow up with them the next week and say, hey, how did that go? Did you get your need met there? Did you not? Okay, let's get you somewhere else. Or if we can't find someone that can meet their need, then we'll find a way to meet it in a creative way. And so that's kind of what our case management team does. So their first full year was 2021, and they helped 1 in 5 people transition to shelter or housing, and 3 out of 4 people they helped take the next step toward ending their homelessness. So they've been really effective so far, and we're getting some more data. So we're going to be growing and improving that program as we move forward.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. So you have 35 paid employees now.
35 paid employees now. Yeah.
Nice. And so talk about where we are now. You mentioned your case management services. How many trailers do you guys have? You still have one or two? Or?
Well, we launched our laundry trailer, has 6 washers and 6 dryers in it. We launched it in April of 2021.
There's some non-homeless people that are probably really interested in it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, laundry cost is going up, you know. But we actually when we register new clients, we actually validate their homelessness and stuff like that, because we want to make sure it's going, you know, it's getting used by the people that need it the most.
You guys validate homelessness?
Yeah. So there's
under what process do you do that?
So they come to our window to register, and it's very simple. We just ask the question, where'd you sleep last night? You know, and they'll tell us where they slept. And then we just ask some basic demographic questions.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess they could lie.
Right.
But yeah, I think it's only been 2 people that have tried to register so far that
didn't qualify.
I see. Yeah.
Now, do you guys, in this age of virtual, and you guys have the mobile trailers, do you have a brick and mortar facility? You mentioned you're the front door. So is there a literal front door?
Well, our trailers have doors too, but we actually we operate on the property of the Christian Service Center. So the Christian Service Center has been a tremendous partner. They have 4 buildings on property. They're actually basically letting us use 1 building on their property.
Wow.
So our outreach management staff and outreach team have an office. We had an administrative office. We just opened a separate administrative office by Florida Mall. But now that's the mental health counseling office. We added mental health counseling this year. And then we have our case management offices, our registration area, storage, break room, you know, bathrooms there, staff bathrooms. It's been really, and we knew, I mean, we look at the graphs. I mean, there's a direct correlation with how much we raise and how many people we can impact. So we said, you know what, God, we know it's triple what we raised the year before, and we know it's 10 times what we raised 2 years before, but we want to raise $1 million this year, and we believe you can help us to do that. And so the very last second in December of 2021, we're at 950, and it was like the last week of the year. And we're like, I don't know how we're gonna get another 50, but God will do it. And sure enough, we had a check come in for 100,000 out of nowhere.
Wow!
And put us right over.
Won't he do it?
Yeah, and I still don't fully know where that came from, actually, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, we know it came from God. Yes, for sure. I don't know who we used.
Right. We don't know the vessel he used.
Yes.
But do we need to know?
No, we don't.
You're just curiosity.
In the fundraising world, they teach you to know, but we don't really need to know.
Now, talking about the fundraising world, would you consider yourself an expert fundraiser? Or, there's many organizations, churches included, like, we're trying to raise money, and what is the science behind it?
Yeah.
Now, did you bring somebody on staff, or tell us your journey in terms of fundraising?
So when I got my bachelor's degree, I graduated in 2016 with a bachelor's in social work. I graduated in 2019 with my master's in nonprofit management. I got my certification as a nonprofit professional. It's called CNP, Certified Nonprofit Professional.
Okay. Do you do any consulting? I'm just interrupting your whole story.
I actually do. I'm starting to get into that world a little bit, the consulting world.
Yeah.
And then I got my certification as a CFRE, which stands for Certified Fundraising Executive. So yeah, fundraising is definitely a science, and it's something I enjoy doing. So I do all the fundraising for the most part. We have a philanthropy assistant that'll help with some grants and some donor management, grant management, and stuff like that. But yeah, that's I love it. It's really about relationship. I mean, just about creating a relationship with people, really selling the mission and the impact of the organization, because I truly believe we're making an impact with the unsheltered. So
before I let the bishop take over and use his 30 minutes, talk to us about the community involvement that you guys, the impact that you're having in the community. Testify about that for us.
So we actually in October of last year, we hired a lot more administrative staff. I was wearing a lot of the administrative hats in the organization. And one of the teams that we built was a data team. So we actually have a data analyst, a reporting analyst, and some data support staff. And so we found out that from August of 2020 to March of 2022, so about an 18-month period, we were involved in helping to end homelessness for over 1,000 people. And of those 1,000 people, over 50% of them were visiting us at least 2 or 3 times a week. So we found out there was a direct correlation with frequency of visits and successful housing outcomes. So the more someone visited us, the more likely they would get moved into housing.
Wow.
And so that was a huge thing. Our on average, that 1,000 people received that moved into housing received at least 4 showers, 5 loads of laundry, about 1.5 haircuts. You know,
1.5 haircuts.
Yeah, that's how the data goes. 1.5 haircuts, and then also 2 case management appointments. So
nice.
So that was kind of the common denominator between all of them in our involvement in helping to end their homelessness.
Yeah.
So
Wow. I could keep going, Bishop, but you got anything you want to jump in with?
All I want to say is powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful. You know, when you ask about the funds, money will come when your dream is real.
Amen.
And so what they're doing is legitimate. And I believe God will send people into your life and into your path because your cause is worthy. And when we begin to help humanity, and there's a statement that I read, when we learn to love the lost, the least, the last, the left out, the marginalized, the way Christ loved them, then his work in us is complete.
Amen.
So that passion for those who can't help us, the passion for those who need it, is really what drives the whole vision. And I believe without a doubt, God is going to bring resources when you are committed to helping his children. And so I hats off. God bless you. Applaud, big ups.
Yeah,
God Keep doing
good.
what you're doing, man. And hey, I just want to get your information myself.
Yeah. No, I got some cards with me.
So
you know,
I want a card.
For those who want to give, who want to ask questions, who want to support the ministry, give the contact information now.
Yeah, so our website is www.saltoutreach.org, and our phone number is 866-BE-SALTY, 866-BE-SALTY, and then you could always email me at Eric, ERIC, @saltoutreach.org. We're actually in the middle of a big fundraising campaign. We had a huge grant delay, $700,000 grant delay. We're supposed to get around this time that we're not getting till January now.
Wow, so you need something to carry.
And that
over.
was supposed to fund us through the end of the year. And so instead of trying to reduce our services, which we had to do some slight reductions, we're actually looking to raise $200,000 between now and the end of September. So it's crazy, but we know God can help. And we actually had a donor say that they would match up to $200,000. And with the matching grant, it becomes a triple match opportunity.
Wow.
So every dollar someone gives is really 3.
And where's the best place to give? Online, call? Where's the
website's the best place, yeah.
saltoutreach.org.
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 Exactly.
Easy to remember. Saltoutreach.org. Go to the website and donate to this powerful ministry. Now, welcome, Brother Daniel Smith, to the show. Good to have you. Good to see you this afternoon. Real quick,
we got some salt in the house.
You do.
You know.
Yeah, so
I hope none of you have high blood pressure because I'm about to.
You bring it.
I do. That's why I'm going to the well after this.
Okay. All right.
No, but we talked about where you were 4 years ago, where you are now. What are the goals and visions for the future? How much more growth are we looking to do?
Yeah. So we actually have some branches that are starting up in different places. We got a branch in Tampa, another branch in Daytona. Potential branch in Tallahassee. We'll see how that goes. And then we got a branch going in San Francisco area.
San Francisco?
Yeah. So we actually have, in March of 2021, we hired an outreach pastor. We did that intentionally because I think it's very common in organizations like this to get so bogged down with the logistics of community service that you forget, or the spiritual gets put in the back burner. So we wanted to make sure we had someone there that can spearhead the spiritual effort.
Amen.
He does group Bible studies 4 times a week now. We hired a second one. They do group Bible studies 4 times a week. They do church service there for our friends. And they're our main liaison between us and churches. So it's all connected because what we call our branches are salt outposts. So if a church wants to duplicate what we're doing, then myself and the outreach pastors, we work together to work with that church and helping to duplicate it where they are. So
Beautiful.
So, Eric, you know, I've known you from the beginning. You've been in this. You have a passion and pride for this. And what I don't understand sometimes is when people have a vision and they cast that vision, it takes a while for people to catch on to it. And I'm thinking about in the beginning phase when you were doing this, it took a while for people, some of the leaders, different church leaders and stuff to catch on. Well, why do you think, that is sometimes with new ministries when you're helping people?
I mean, I think in the church, and I understand this thought process as well to some degree is you have a lot of ministries rising up that aren't under maybe the conference, you could say, or the official church structure, and it's it can be scary to church leaders when that happens, and I get that. You're protecting your flock. You don't want false teachings to get out there and that kind of thing. We're not a church, so that's one thing. We're not necessarily like, well, we kind of are a church in a way, but I think when people started to see, I think another part of it too is we're a bunch of young people. We didn't have an infrastructure at first. When we were presenting this in 2019 to different entities, I mean, one of the big things was, we don't have that infrastructure. We don't have an HR department. We don't have a hired accountant or any of these things. So to give us six figures is kind of a scary thing. But someone had to take a chance.
That's right.
And someone did. COVID happened, and that's what kind of, I think, motivated some people to be able to take that chance. And with God's help, we've been able to take it and run with it.
And the reason why I asked that is because that reminds me of Jesus in the earlier days. They looked at him. He was a young, passionate, strong leader, and they was like, he was going against the traditional church manifesto, and he had to formulate his vision, and there was a lot of pushback, but look at what's happening now.
Amen.
So it's like never get discouraged.
Yeah, really. And I think with anyone that has a vision, I think one of the biggest things we could take away from where we are now, where we were before, is really being consistent.
Yes.
There were times where where several of us felt like giving up, and some people did give up, to some degree, you know what I mean? And so, but that consistency, if we would have threw in the towel a month before COVID, we wouldn't be where we are now. Our organization might have even dissolved. Who knows? But because we stayed consistent, God had opened that door. And I think when it's hard when things are stagnant, maybe, and you feel like things aren't really growing. But I remember when we had launched our shower trailer, there was a community leader that we had presented this to. We went up a couple levels and finally got to this place. We're at a table with some big decision makers, and our proposal was rejected. And it was rejected pretty harshly. And we took it hard. We took it hard. We kept going, but we took it hard. And I remember when we were launching our laundry trailer, we did ribbon cutting. That person was there, and he came up to me. He's like, Eric, I just want to say thank you for continuing to move to do this, even after we rejected that proposal. And I'm so glad that it's worked out and that you are where you are today, because now look at what's happening. Look at the impact that's happening. So I really respected him for coming back to us and talking to us about that later on.
For those individuals out there who have a vision, have a ministry that they believe is birthed in their heart, and they're looking to move forward in this type of endeavor, in ministry endeavor, what kind of advice would you give to them?
Good question.
And you mentioned one of them already, be consistent.
Yeah. So for sure, it's believing that God really could do anything. I mean, I heard a story once and it stuck with me. It's about Alexander the Great. And so there was a time where, I guess the legend is that he would have one day a year that he would grant anyone in his kingdom whatever they asked for. And that day came, and people were going up to the guard, and Alexander was in the background, and they're telling the guard, hey, I want food. Another person would say clothing. Another person would say medication. And that was the general consensus. Most people were just asking for food, medication, and clothing. And finally, someone came up to the guard and said, you know what? I want a palace. And the guard's like, what? Like, why are you asking for a palace? How can you ask for that? And the guy's like, yeah, I want a palace. I want it to be fully furnished. I want to have a big kitchen and want it to be full of food. And the guards, going crazy. He's like, how could you ask for such a thing? Everyone else is asking for this. And Alexander, he sees the commotion. He walks over and he says, what's the problem? And the guard's like, well, this guy, he's asking for a palace. Apparently he has a lot of friends. He wants a bunch of food and a big kitchen and, fully furnished. And Alexander, he looks at the petitioner and he smiles and he says, request granted. And the guard says, how could you grant such an outrageous request? And Alexander says, you know what? Everyone else is asking for food, medication, and clothing. Anyone with a little extra resources can grant that request. But this man makes me feel like a king because only I can grant that request. And when we realize that we are serving the King of the universe,
yes,
and he can grant anything within his will to impact the community and to bring people to Christ, then there is no limit. I feel like we all have this faith ceiling, right? And everyone's ceiling's different, and we might not even realize we have that ceiling. Like, it might be here or here, and I think when we realize what it is, where that ceiling is, when we're in prayer with God, to just say, okay, I realize this is what I think the limit is, but let me take it a step further. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we need to practice in our everyday life, working with God. So, yeah.
Wow.
Let me ask this. A lot of times we have these big visions. I'm about to get the palace, right? But salt didn't start in the palace. Tell us about, it's got to start somewhere. And a lot of times I think we let good be I don't know what the saying is, the something of the best, or good be the something of the great. But, how does one just get started? Well,
that's just the thing, I think a lot of people don't start. And a lot of people don't take that step. And that's the hardest part, honestly, is you might have a good idea, and a lot of people have good ideas, and God inspires good ideas all the time. But people don't take that first step. So one thing for sure is take the step. Just do it. You might not have maybe all the resources you need, or you might not have all the people behind you, but just do something.
It's funny that you said the start of salt. Now I don't know if we talked about this, Sean, but it's like, why would you ask that? And I was thinking that, and I was remembering, Eric, the beginnings. You kind of started in the beginnings. It was like in my living room.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah. We were doing some Bible studies there, and you actually had referred some really good quality young adults that wanted to be involved in ministry. And when we met them at that Bible study, and they become lifelong friends now.
And I was like, then we had a little planning thing, and Mr. Henley was there.
Mr. Henley was there.
And this was before he was thick. You guys can see he's thick now.
That was
Eric thick.
That's the skinny Eric. That's the skinny Eric.
So when you said start, it can start right in your living room. You can cast that vision. And the thing is, I guess what I want to ask Eric, it's like he's always had this passion, this soft, powerful drive. And it's like, who could you are you mentoring someone just in case, you start somewhere else in Texas or whatever, because you are salt.
Well, we have a big team now.
35 paid employees then.
I can honestly, I feel confident if I took a week off. My wife, I mentioned, had surgery recently, took a week off, and a year ago I couldn't do that, but now I can. We have a great team. The responsibilities are split. They have a big vision as well. Great leaders. So if I disappeared, I'm confident SALT will continue to operate
And that's the legacy. You know, when you leave a legacy, if you can step away
and the business still run.
God is blessed.
Man, what happens if you step away, Bushman? What happens to?
Hey, somebody else steps up. Just like every prophet, somebody else will step right in the gap.
Now, what was your first ministry? Was it the haircuts? Was it the feeding of the food?
We did the food first.
The food.
Yeah.
And where did you get food from? It sounds like you cooked it in Daniel's living room.
So, I mean, we did cook it in someone's house. Yeah, we had Isai. He was one of the first leaders of our unsheltered ministry, and he would use his house. His parents and him sometimes and would be the ones cooking all the food for 200-300 people. And those were the times that were tough. I mean, it's those times when you don't have volunteers show up, when you know you're hosting a Bible study and no one comes through. You're doing a Bible study with yourself. You know what I mean? That's when it gets hard. You know, and that's when a lot of people give up. But it's that consistency I mentioned.
Yes.
You know, just pushing through there, because God will, He will come through, and it might not be. I mean. You know, it was, I mean, COVID was in 2020. We started in 2011. I mean, it wasn't it was 9 years.
9 years.
That we were, you know, I mean, there was some growth, but it got to a point for a good 6 years. I mean, we were kind of, you know, just kind of going back and forth a little, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then God, you know, we stay consistent, and God blessed that. So,
man.
Yeah.
So, established 2011, so you're on your 11-year anniversary this year.
11 years in September, this month.
When did you start doing SALT full-time and not just as a side hustle?
So I quit my job in April 1st of 2021.
April who?
April 1st of 2021.
What? Yeah. Out of all the days of the year, you're going to be April 1st?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, people thought I was joking. I mean, that just happened to be the day, you know.
Wow.
I was working at Amazon in human resources. And, you know, I had to. It got to the point where, and I would not recommend anyone to go through this, but I was working 30, 40 hours a week with SALT, and then 40 hours a week with my job.
Wow.
It was really tough, and I was doing that for a while because it just kept growing, you know, and we just had to take that leap, you know what I mean?
And Eric, I have to say that it just, you know, you were preparing yourself, not just, you know, learning as you go, but you went back to school. You got your master's in, what is it? Nonprofit management. So he was preparing himself along the way as he was still living his dream.
Yeah, he told us that.
Yeah, well, I'm just recapping.
and that's something I would recommend too. I think a lot of people, they study what they think they should do, or you know, kind of the career path that they're maybe set to go in, but they have a vision for something else.
Right.
I think it's important for us to study in school something that aligns with our vision, not necessarily that aligns with our career. If that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so
So when did the vision come to you? At what age? Since you said that.
He was a young 13-year-old boy. He went to the temple.
No, it was when I was in about a year after I was baptized in May of 2010.
Oh wow.
So about a year and a few months after that, had a crazy experience, and God just made it very clear that this is the path He wants for me. And so
wow.
Yeah.
You said you wouldn't recommend working 30 hours a week at your ministry and also 30 hours a week at your day job.
30, 40.
Right. So why, why didn't you quit earlier, I guess, is the question.
I mean, you know, honestly, you know, since SALT started, I mean, we taught with our team and everything. I mean, we always envisioned we do ministry full time. I mean, that was the dream, you know, and we kept at the forefront of our vision and where we wanted to go. And, you know, but when it got to that point, you know, where I moved up the ranks in the human resource world, and, you know, I was making some good money, had that job security, you know, that good Now let me tell you how the enemy works.
Yeah, throw that money in your face.
I got a job at Amazon. They gave me almost 60,000, 70,000 in stocks. Amazon stocks.
I hope you still got the stock.
No, I had to stay with them for 5 years to keep those stocks.
Oh, wow.
And they gave a sign-on bonus of 16,000 the first year, I think, and 8,000 the next year. But I had to stay with them to keep all of that.
Right.
And so when this was happening now, I had to give all of that up.
Oh my goodness.
In order to, so this is a good, $80,000-$90,000 that was given to me that I had to give up in order to make this move.
Wow.
And so, in my head, I'm thinking, man, like maybe now's not the time. Maybe there's something, my faith was wavering, I think. But eventually, I just wrestled with God on it, and I was like, no, this is what I've been dreaming of since we started this ministry. I gotta make the leap, and so it just took a while. So I got to that point where I was working so much in both jobs. So
a leap of faith, Pastor, Bishop. What can you say about taking a leap of faith in life?
Well, it's really not a leap of faith. I think it's more like you following your conviction. And the Bible says faith is a substance. So it has to be something tangible. So it's not just something invisible. It's there, but it's in your heart. And every problem that exists, remember, you were brought into existence to solve problems. And so Eric's existence was to solve this problem that is right now he's facing. And then once that passion connects with preparation, you have success. So that's what happens in the life of a person. They're not there by accident. Remember, Jesus said in John 5, when they accused him of healing the brother on the Sabbath, and he picked up his mat, and the Pharisees are all up in his grill, he said, hold up, pump the brakes. I only do what I see my Father doing. So in other words, he said, my Father is always active. The key is being sensitive to what God is doing, enjoying what he's doing, and opposed to saying, bless me, help me to do what you're blessing. And that's the difference. When we follow our hearts, they're in tune with the passion. And then when the strings and the harmony matches God's will and purpose, man, you have an awesome combustible power.
Wow.
Woo! Excuse me, I didn't mean to holler like that, but I'm getting happy.
This is so much he said you have to, it's hard to just unpack all that stuff, the harps and the playing and
it all comes together. In other words, it's he'll give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah, but Bishop, here's the problem I have. I got Eric over here, the leader of Saul, began this ministry in 2011.
Yes.
Almost 11 years ago.
Yes, that's fine.
And he says he got rejections. People were turning him down. And they were growing.
They were laughing at him.
Incrementally. And for a 6-year period, feel like it was stagnant until COVID hit. And then, boom,
yes, sir.
It took off.
Yeah.
But why we gotta wait so long? If this is something that God has given us, right?
It's not that you have to wait. God has to process. In other words, God sees us at the conclusion. We see us in the journey, and what we see is the process, the waiting. God already sees the conclusion. So we have to start living with what God already said, the promises, while we're going through it. And so we take God, for instance, when we don't believe those promises as we go through it, then yes, we're going to endure more unnecessary mental anguish. But if we learn how to embrace those promises, would help us become the partakers of divine nature. That's what it says. These promises are given to help us become partakers of the divine nature. And as you become more like God, you begin to see like God and feel like God and sense God. So getting on the same page with God is what Jesus did. And that's why he spent an enormous amount of time in prayer. And that's why he would go, and his thing was he was praying so that he can be in tune with the activity of God, and he would show up, and then God would use him to dispense the blessing.
Right. So I hear what you're saying in there, and then I'm going to let Eric speak. I don't want to speak for him, but because a lot of times as attorneys we like to speak for people
because you know the outcome you want.
Right. So Eric, I would feel like, listen, this is long. Wait, Lord, I'm good. I pray to you
hold on.
every day.
Abraham had to wait 25 years. He was told at 75, I'm going to bless you.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't until he was 100 that he was taking his son up to Mount Moriah to kill him.
Yeah, so let Abraham wait 100 years. My name's not Abraham.
But notice, God has to do the same. Moses didn't start his ministry until he was 80.
All right, I feel frustrated. Eric, were you frustrated? You telling your testimony. I won't speak for you.
Let me say this. Looking back, we wouldn't have been ready. to receive this.
Wow.
So
Oh, you wouldn't
Wow.
we
say that.
would not
Wow.
have
That's
been
what I'm
ready
saying.
to receive
All
this.
right, so
sooner.
you're right, Bishop.
So-
You're
Hey,
right.
don't be putting no hands on the pastor.
If we would have received this
Absolutely.
in 2016, 2017, 2018,
Sabotage.
we would not have
Wow.
been ready to take it at that volume. Let me tell you something. So
amazing.
we had, so in 2019 we started to operate twice a month, right? And then in 2020 we entered 2020 starting to operate 3 times a month. And remember, our vision was to at least do 3 days a week.
Right.
And so we came in January of 2020 and we said, you know what? We actually want to do once a week, but we can't do this all volunteer anymore. We need to hire some part-time people, right? So we hired 2 part-time people to operate once a week in February of 2020. COVID happened in March.
Yeah.
If we had not decided to hire part-time people to get an HR infrastructure in place to figure out the workers' comp situation, the general liability, you know, all those aspects of having employees and having that infrastructure, we would not even been able to receive that blessing in March. We would have even had to even turn it down. Maybe we didn't have staff. If we didn't have
Wow.
staff, we wouldn't have been able to do it. But because God put in our minds and in our hearts to do this 3 days a week, and we believed it was going to happen, we moved forward as if it was going to happen.
Yeah.
And when God saw us set up for it, that's when it happened.
So are you
And
saying
that's the
if-
key. What he said. He said you move forward until you get an updated word to do different.
so maybe if they would have hired the people earlier? No, I'm just being difficult.
I
I'm being
mean-
difficult.
So you
Yeah.
have Pastor Bushner with the theory,
Yes.
and you have
Brother
Eric
yes. With the
practical.
practice. Yes. Well, what are you bringing to the table, Dan?
I'm bringing experience too.
You and I are coming with the questions.
Well, y'all coming with the observation.
Yeah.
So
I
you
like
can
that
look
Thank
back.
you.
observation.
We don't even know what we're doing.
But you're going back and you're analyzing what happened, so that the empirical data
Yeah.
says God can be trusted.
God
Wow.
can be trusted. Yeah.
Well, he's just an encyclopedia
did.
Britannica.
He did. I mean, he said it. Doc said, you know, he's processing you. He's getting you ready, right? And then
Wow.
Eric said, let me testify on that. He telling the
Yeah.
truth. We wouldn't have been ready.
Yep.
Here's the empirical data to show that we would have been. So God he knows what he's
Well,
doing.
see, again, you got to go back to the biblical aspect. Remember when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt? He said, if we go this route, premature, they see they're not ready. They weren't ready. So, in other words, your character sometimes want the shortcut, but if you got it and get it, then you would sabotage the blessing.
Wow.
So God says pre-adventure, they see, like, for instance, my son Reggie was in the 3rd grade, Ronald was in the 5th grade. Reggie looks at Ronald's 5th grade work and begin to trip. I can't do 5th grade work. So hold on, bro, pump the brakes. You ain't in the 5th grade.
Right.
You 3rd grade. Why you tripping on 5th grade work when you're in the 3rd grade? And I'm saying that's what we do sometimes as Christians. We tripping over 5th grade work when you're in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Enjoy the 3rd grade, and 4th grade will come. Then 5th grade, you can celebrate when
Sean.
you get there.
Enjoy the 3rd grade.
Yeah. My youngest son is enjoying the 3rd grade work right now. So
And that's what happens though. Somewhere, I don't know. I'm a 45-year-old Christian. Somewhere, we have to get over the anxiety of God not coming through. I mean,
Wow.
for instance,
Wow.
it's
hard though. Doc. That's hard.
That's why you're in therapy right now. This therapy.
I
We're
remember
having
when
therapy right
I read a statement today. It says, Jesus on earth was not manifesting power. He was just living out his authority.
He was not manifesting power.
In
That's
other words,
deep.
when he healed, like for instance, when he healed somebody, it wasn't necessarily manifesting the power. You could flip the coin and say he was just exercising his authority. See, in other words, the first Adam was given authority over everything. Then the second Adam comes. Why would he be limited? Not to have the authority that the first Adam had. But he lived in such, that thing.
He's so deep.
He lived in such a close relationship with God. It wasn't this theory that God allowed him to exercise the authority that we should be having. That the first century church had in Acts.
So
They had it in Acts.
we have the access to that.
We should be doing
Now.
that. But our lives are so we so, for instance, what you call it, distracted, and we're not living in that authority. So we have to ask the question: how do we live in the authority to get what's necessary to carry out the mission that God is asking us
All
to
right,
do.
let me push back on you for a second, Doc. Talk about, you brought up Abraham, so let's go to Abraham, right?
Yeah.
You know,
You can jump in on this too, Eric.
every night when he went to bed with Sarah,
Yep.
remembering the promise that God had given him about the seed, right?
That's right.
He said, I'm living my authority every night.
That's right.
Sarah, tonight we're going to live our authority at 8 o'clock.
That's right.
Nothing happened. All right. Tomorrow we're going to live out. Every time he went down
That's right.
into the, to worship.
Promised land.
He was trying to live out his authority.
Yeah.
We got some individuals driving in their cars saying, Lord, I'm trying to live up my authority.
Yes.
But you making Salt wait 11 years. You making Abraham wait 100 years.
Right.
But how long do I have to wait and live up my authority before I actually get?
Practice. In other words, think about it. Whatever you don't have, maybe it's the lack of effort you have not put in.
So you're saying Abraham didn't put in enough effort?
No. Evidently, he didn't when he lied about his wife. He pimped her out. Didn't he pimp her out twice?
Yes,
He pimped her out twice. This ain't my girl. This is my sister. So yeah.
Lack of faith.
Yeah, lack of faith.
You know what's interesting about that story? I was reading it recently. Is it wasn't until Abraham prayed for someone else that was barren to give birth that the very next verse.
Okay. So when we start being preoccupied with ourselves, I told you again, we
Yes.
were preoccupied.
Where is that? I got
So yeah, right before it says that he gave birth to Isaac. That last verse of the chapter right before, he prayed for someone else who was barren. I believe it was a Gentile king or secular king or whatever. For them to be pregnant and to give birth, and then the very next verse he did.
I remember that story when Job prayed for his friends. I remember that one.
That's another one. You got to stop getting again. What was it? There's always, for instance, in every text of Scripture, a subject and a predicate. There is, what are you talking about? What are you saying about it? And the hermeneutics of the thought is, what's the dominating theme in this thought when you read the Bible? And there's a dominating theme that runs throughout the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. There are they're like small episodes running in each chapter in each book of the Bible, but there's an overarching theme that we know is consistent, but there are little chapters and paragraphs throughout. So when you look at the Bible and you understand those themes, then you can extrapolate or pull out those themes and live on those promises. And that's a theme that we have in the Bible, that God, for instance, like with Abraham, had to process him. And for instance, there's a thing in the Bible where he broke bread, and every time he breaks bread, it's the same way. He took the bread, he blessed the bread, he broke the bread, gave the bread away. That becomes a theme that dominates that thought. And once you find it, I'm just filling it in till y'all find it. I'll stop talking.
I got it.
Go ahead.
I got it.
Go ahead.
So Genesis 20, verse 17, starting at verse 17, it says, "Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech, his wife, and his female slaves, so they could have children again. For the Lord had kept all the women of Abimelech's household from conceiving because of Abraham's wife Sarah." Then the next verse, it says, "Now the Lord was gracious to Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what he had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son." So when Abraham had prayed for other people that could not conceive to be able to conceive, then you see in just the next verse or two, he conceived. And it made me, I was studying this for a devotional one night, and my wife, I mentioned she was getting surgery, and I was there waiting, and I saw all these other surgeries on this TV, right? And so I'm praying for my wife, that goes well and all that. But I was reflecting on this. I'm like, I should be praying for all these surgeries right now. There's like 10 surgeries going on. So I prayed for all the surgeries, but it kind of, it spoke to me a lot reading that.
Beautiful revelation.
But I thought that was
That's
interesting.
Powerful. I mean, and again, it goes back to when Jesus said, "I seek not my will, but the will of the Father. I came not to do my will." And then there is in one of my favorite authors who writes, "In these words is the law of the universe that governs everything." In these words, and these words are, "I seek not my own glory." That's what governs the universe. See, in other words, the whole universe is on one pulse: love. A love that's self-sacrificing love, a love that thinketh not of her own, a love that is self-renouncing, that you forget about you and you concern yourself about doing God's will. And once we can get beyond ourselves, God said, I got you when you let me use you to hurt. So many hurting people that when I keep what I have about me, I'm limiting myself, limiting God to the capacity of people he could reach. See, in other words, their ministry is like, it's going boom. But if you sit over there and just worry about your one blessing that you need, and if I gave you that one blessing, what you going to do with it? So if I heal that what you want, if I do that, now you're just going to live in that isolation with that financial breakthrough. Opposed to you now praying for thousands of people who need financial breakthroughs or people who need spiritual breakthroughs. But you're worrying about your little pity party. And if I did help you because you're so self-centered, it won't bless anybody but you. So God is looking beyond us in the process of whatever we're going through so that he can do the one thing, like I told you. And at least it is. He took the bread, he blessed the bread, he broke the bread with the purpose of giving the bread away. And that's when on the road of Emmaus, when the brothers saw him do the same thing, they said their eyes were open when they saw how he broke bread. He does it the same way. He takes the bread, he blesses the bread, he breaks the bread, gives the bread away. And that's the theme of what God does to individuals. He took us from a life of sin, then he blesses us, but then he breaks us in order to give us away. And you can't give a person away unless they experience brokenness. And the good news is this: if you're going through brokenness, it's a process of waiting. You can't break bread unless your hand is on it. So if you're going through brokenness, you better shout right now. Because God got his hands on it.
God's got his hands on it.
That song, I Give Myself Away.
And that's the reason why he want to give you away. There is so much in each one of us that if we keep it, we're robbing the world. So brokenness is a part of the process to get you to broken people. See, people are operating their life. Behavior comes out of brokenness. There's broken places. So now I heard somebody say, when people act crazy, don't trip on them. Ask one question: what happened to them? What happened to them? What happened to that person? So when a human being is doing something you know is downright stupid, what happened to them? Somewhere they are broken, and they're operating out of that brokenness, because we all know hurt people hurt people.
So Eric, in these last minutes, this is so enlightening. How can someone give again to your ministry? I mean, I love your giving websites. It's just so easy. It's so easy to manipulate, maneuver through. Excellent. So give us that information.
Yeah.
Again.
So again, our website's saltoutreach.org, and there's a big donate button on there. You have us, if you have Facebook, you can get us on Facebook at Salt Outreach Inc. INC. In Instagram, Salt Outreach, and you could even text. You can text the number 44321. That's the number again, 44321, and you can text Pass the Salt.
Pass the salt. I like that.
Yeah.
Wow, he got some nice hashtags. Pass the salt.
Awesome.
Wow, yeah, I remember seeing Eric and Salt on different news stations, ribbon cuttings, the mayors. They were there, so they're legit. They're really legit. They're making a difference in the community. It's just been a pleasure to have them on. I remember you guys was on like 4 different channels at the same different times for what you're doing, and you're making an impact, and this is what matters, and community matters.
I just want to make one quick correction. It's the number 44321, but text Somersault, SUMMER, salt. That's the current fundraiser. Sorry about that.
Okay, Somersault.
Somersault.
Yeah.
Like the somersault you used to do.
No, I'm play on words.
I know.
Some of y'all salt. Everybody ain't salt. Some of y'all.
There's the triple match opportunity right now. So every dollar given is actually going to be $3. So.
And that's somersault, SUMMERSALT.
That's right.
Not the thing that they do in gymnastics.
Not that thing.
That's what I was thinking.
Or not the Ebonics, somersault.
Yeah, not that either. Yeah.
Not that either. SUMMER.
Mm-hmm.
So
this
Yeah, it was so glad to have the Bishop and Eric to join us today for Community Matters here on 1680 WOKB, your urban empowerment and inspiration station. I hope that everything you've heard has been a blessing to you, has been a salt to you. And we want to encourage everyone to give back to the community. And one way that you can do that is through this triple matching program with Summer Salt. I want to remind everyone that this program has been brought to you by the law offices of Sean R.H. Smith, PA, handling all of your estate planning, probate, guardianship, wills, and testament issues. You can give us a call at 321-295-7801, 321-295-7801. You can reach us online at Sean, SHAWNRH Smith, law.net. That's SeanRHSmithLaw.net. Thank you again for joining us, and we'll be back again next week, same time and same
station
channel.
All right. Peace.
Thank you.